Last year's joint combat training was about Taylor, the failed swordsman, who turned his weapon into a sword, then defeated Lucy, and became the highlight of the event. Although the scenario deviated far from the original, and even led to Janika's brief tantrum, this year's joint combat training was still an important event. The content of this episode was about the talented elite first-year students, challenge a generation of protagonists who are already experienced and have built their reputation in battle implementation. When the duel began, the term training became meaningless, as the first-year students recklessly exerted their strength without restraint. With the arrogance of someone who had not known the height of the sky, they recklessly attacked, using everything they had. But then, with a wooden sword in his hand, Taylor broke all the attacks they threw and broke all the arrogance they had. After growing very strong for more than a year, Taylor left an unforgettable mark in everyone's minds. Realizing Taylor's greatness, which was the closing of the scene, Clarice, who hid her true identity and melted with the audience, touched by Taylor's development. The relationship between Taylor and St. Clarice, one of the four heroines, is important. In Act 3, Lucy's showdown, and even in the stories afterwards, her strength will be needed. As such an important character, this event must go according to the original scenario. For that to happen, the elite first-year students must go on a rampage according to the scenario. The reason for their rampage was actually simple. It was because none of them made it into Class A during the placement exam. And the reason why none of the students made it into Class A was because of Assistant Professor Claire's enthusiastic use of this purple disc during the exam. But now, the purple disc was broken. It was really giving them a headache. Claire felt that it seemed that the circuit itself was broken. They might have to send a repair request to the academy to fix it. Clebius really couldn't accept this, even though they had worked hard. Why did this have to happen? While they were confused about what to do, Anise herself now felt depressed and guilty. She then apologized to them. She realized that she should have been more careful. After thinking for a while, Ed then said that just standing here would not fix that broken magic engineering item. If left like this, it could be that most new students would enter Class A. It would be too much. So they had to handle this immediately. Ed was confident that they could definitely handle this. Clebius was quite surprised to hear his confidence. But what made him more surprised was when Ed suddenly put his arm around his shoulders. Ed continued, "But that's only if the gloomy Clebius intervenes." Clebius could only be surprised to hear that. It was clear from his face that he didn't seem to agree. At the starting point of the location of the new student placement exam, the entrance to Mount Oron, a question arose. When does one really feel he has arrived in the land of knowledge, Sylvania? If you ask that to Tanya, she will answer, when she is greeted directly by the noble students who are destined to meet her. Although the princess and the chancellor or something like that are students of Sylvania, they all wear the same uniform and ignore the status they have. But there is one exception to this unwritten rule. That is when the spiritual leader of millions of Telos believers, St. Clarice, finally entered Sylvania. Those noble students even bowed simultaneously when she walked past them. Seeing that, with a bright smile, Clarice thanked them, but she asked them not to be so formal. She said if they followed all the formalities, their academy life itself would become tiring. So, for her sake, Clarice asked them to please minimize their manners a little, although she said that, but it was certainly difficult for them to do so. Clarice then turned her head when someone respectfully greeted her. It was Tanya. Tanya then introduced herself to her. Clarice was quite surprised to hear that she was from the Roth-Taylor family. She then smiled at her. She said that Crefin, the current patriarch of the Roth-Taylor family, was baptized by her. But she was too young at that time, so she didn't remember much. Hearing that, Tanya said that it was a great honor for her. She said that she would also ask for her baptism when she grew up. Clarice said that she was looking forward to it, although Tanya was so polite and respectful to her. But she certainly had a thought when suddenly greeting her like that. Meeting the saint in front of everyone was the perfect exposure to help her in the election of student council president. But the main event of the day is still, right at that moment. The new students were then surprised when they saw a firework that flew into the sky, then exploded so majestically. They knew that it was a sign of the start of the exam. The new students then simultaneously began to move when they saw it. The combat faculty was in the student square. The magic faculty was at the entrance of Mount Oron, and the alchemy faculty was in the basement of Obel Hall. The location of the gathering and the content of the exam varied depending on the faculty, but the goal was the same. That is, to get into Class A, full tuition exemption, the right to live in Ophelis Hall, free access to student welfare facilities, and a great honor Those are the things that students get when they get into Class A. The students took the exam very eagerly. They felt very happy when they found a magic stone and went straight to the location of the altar of substitution. They thought that if they put the magic stone on the altar faster than others, they would be able to enter Class A. They even felt unacceptable when they were raced by other students. The thoughts of the new students were based on the motivation to aim for the top position, while Tanya herself now felt very suspicious when looking at the magic stone. The number of magic stones was too much. She was sure that what they had to do was not just put this thing on the altar. There must be a device that had been installed that made the difficulty of this exam increased. Realizing that, Tanya then decided, instead of wasting her stamina, she would do it slowly and stay alert. But she was then surprised when she heard a scream near where she was standing. It turned out to be from a female student who ran towards her. Seeing the female student's shoes off, Tanya wondered, did she slip? She then politely asked her, "Is your leg injured? If so, I can help call a staff member." But the female student denied it. She said that she just wanted to feel the direct touch of snow with bare feet. She felt very happy when she felt the cold sensation coming from her feet. Tanya could only be stunned at that. She didn't understand why she was doing such a silly thing here. The girl innocently asked, was she not allowed? Did it feel strange? She said that she wrote this on her wish list. She had only imagined it, but it turned out to be softer than she expected. Seeing her innocent face and silly behavior, a conjecture then popped into Tanya's head. She wondered, did she bump her head after the exam started? She felt very sorry for her. Tanya then introduced herself to her. She felt like they were in the same class. The girl was quite surprised to hear that she was from the Roth-Taylor family. She heard that all the members of the Roth-Taylor family were prominent because of their high status. Hearing that, Tanya then immediately said that not all of them were like that. She could only feel confused hearing that, Tanya explained. No matter how high the status of a family was, if the bloodline lasted too long, sometimes there was a scum, or even an insolent shithead born in the family. Tanya was of course referring to Ed, but the version of Ed she saw in the camp that time looked much different from what she remembered about him. She still didn't know what Ed Roth-Taylor's true nature was. The fear he had instilled in her at that time still hadn't gone away. Hearing that, the girl stammered that she didn't seem like that kind of person. She then remembered that she was just someone who came from the countryside. Since she came from the Roth-Taylor family, she wondered if she should show her respect. Tanya said that she didn't need to do that. This was Sylvania. Hearing that, she then realized she agreed with her. This was Sylvania. She then introduced herself to her. Her name was Kylie Ekney. She was from a small city-state called Eastern Terrene Republic. She said that she wasn't used to the way the world works. If she did do something strange, she apologized in advance. She wasn't used to places like this. Hearing her formal tone, Tanya said that they were in the same class, so she asked her to talk to her informally. Kylie understood. Tanya then asked her to hurry up. This is an exam? Kylie finally remembered that. She said that she didn't really think about her score. Getting into Class A would make her look too conspicuous. Tanya could only feel annoyed by that. She was annoyed every time she heard her response. But then she was surprised when Kylie suddenly grasped her hand. Kylie said, because she was not too interested in the exam, so she decided to help her. That way, they would get closer right. Kylie happily said that this was her first time having a friend her age. Seeing her enthusiasm, Tanya told her to be aware. She could behave like that only because she was with her. If she carelessly got along with someone like the princess or saint, she could get into big trouble. Kylie didn't seem to know that at all. When Tanya was about to emphasize it once again, she suddenly abandoned her intention. She was tired. She then invited her to, let's just go. 30 minutes after the exam started, a student who had found a magic stone earlier was now panting. Climbing the mountain, he felt very happy because he thought he was the first. Just a little more for him to reach the top of the mountain. He also mocked his friend Joseph, who was racing him earlier. No matter how good he was, his stamina was still better, but he felt very tired at this time. Running at full speed was a bit too much. He felt so tired that he felt almost dead. But what he didn't realize was, there was a monster-like creature that had set its sights on him at this time, and before he could react, the monster then violently hit his face, looking at the student who was now lying on the ground unconscious. Clebius, who pretended to be the monster, tremblingly cursed. He felt that it was really scary, he complained. Why did he have to suddenly jump out like that? He also reproached his behavior just now. He felt that it was a little sneaky. A senior should not do such a cowardly and pathetic act. Even so, he did not expect. He turned out to be able to handle this, as he said. At that time, when Ed suddenly mentioned his name, Clebius hysterically said, "Why does it always have to be me?" Hearing his complaint, Ed calmly said that this time it was not just him. A powerful explosion was created at the place near the top of the mountain. It was Anis's doing. Ed, at that time, asked Clebius and Anis to block the new students from reaching the altar. If any new students managed to break through them and reach the altar, then they were entitled to enter Class A. Anis agreed to his plan. She felt it was her responsibility for damaging the purple disc, so she would give her best effort. As for Onyx, who was an expert in flying magic, Ed asked him to be in charge of safety. He would secure the new students who had been injured. As for the documents related to the exam content changes, Ed then asked Assistant Professor Claire if she went to submit it immediately, she would be able to complete it when the exam was over, right? Claire could only feel depressed hearing that. She realized that she would not be able to sleep again later. Ed then explained again their respective assignments. Assistant Professor Claire would handle the documents. Onyx is in charge of safety. Clebius would guard the southern entrance, and Anis would handle the northern entrance. Hearing that, Anis then asked, "What about him?" While looking back, Ed said that he would stay here. He will protect the altar. That means he will be the last line to prevent the new students from entering Class A. Hearing that, Claire then felt worried for him. She knew that his mana had not fully recovered. She asked, was he sure it would be okay? Ed just said that he had a plan. Seeing the three of them who were so totality in carrying out their assignments, Ed then felt calm. There seemed to be no problems. He then picked up the broken purple disc earlier. It was a magic engineering item that could give off the illusion of a powerful enemy using the user's mana. But since it was broken, it couldn't function optimally. Ed planned to repair the item, but he realized that repairing the purple disc alone was difficult. Plus, his mana still hadn't recovered. But he was now living in Sylvania. The magic stone that was just used as an exam subject was something expensive. It was an item that contained a large amount of mana. Ed then placed the magic stone onto the altar. If he placed something containing mana onto the altar, it could extract its mana as a temporary use. By using this altar, he could replenish his mana, although it took quite a while. While Ed was waiting for his mana to slowly replenish, Mugg suddenly appeared at this time. It seemed to say something to him. Ed smiled. He then greeted it. He said that he couldn't hear clearly what it said. Anis and Clebius would buy a little time for him. He also still had a lot of magic stones. Their goal was not to let a single new student pass. Ed exhaled for a moment. He silently invited them to come. All his preparations had been completed at this time.